Science, religion, at war for thousands of years.
The pioneers of the scientific method had to wait some time before they could demonstrate the practical benefits of their studies. Until then, they pursued knowledge of the natural world simply because such knowledge was considered to be a good in itself. This particular pursuit of knowledge makes sense if we are thinking God's thoughts after Him by studying His creation. Intellectuals would have been less inclined to study a world produced by the random movement of meaningless atoms in the infinite void. Today almost all historians agree that Christianity, Catholicism as well as Protestantism, moved early modern intellectuals to study nature systematically.
2.
Notions borrowed from Christian belief found their way into scientific discourse. Christians believed that God was both rational and sovereign, a rather different worldview from the ancients' belief that the world sprang out of chaos and was governed by fortune. A rational, personal God would create an orderly, regular universe. This led to the belief that nature would be governed by laws. The nature of this or that body is but the law of God prescribed to it. To speak properly, a law is but a notional rule of acting according to the declared will of a superior. As Descartes wrote to Mersenne on April 15, 1630, God established these laws in nature, in the same way as a king establishes laws in his kingdom.
3.
To have knowledge of the natural world, the laws of nature must not be too deep or complex for us to follow. Christians believe that we were made in God's image. We were also made to know and worship God. It follows that we were created with the intellectual ability to understand God's creation. This belief gave intellectuals confidence that they could truly grasp and understand the natural world. Those laws are within the grasp of the human mind. God wanted us to recognize them by creating us after His own image, so that we could share in His own thoughts. This point was made explicitly by Coates in his preface to the second edition of Isaac Newton's great work The Principia Mathematica. In words clearly approved by Newton himself. Without all doubt this world could arise from nothing but the perfectly free will of God. These laws of nature therefore we must not seek from uncertain conjectures, but learn them from observations and experiments.
4.
Unlike the ancient Greeks, who believed that the physical world was inferior to the intellectual and the spiritual, the Judeo-Christian scriptures taught that the created realm was good. It was not shameful to get one's hands dirty through physical labor. The physical world was also worthy of contemplation. The enthusiasm for the new empiricism is equally well illustrated by John Wilkins, an Anglican bishop with Puritan sympathies, a founding member of the Royal Society. "We should not be so superstitiously devoted to antiquity," wrote Wilkins in the carefully chosen words of a 17th-century bishop, "as for to take up everything as canonical, which drops from the pen of a father. We must labor to find out what things are in themselves by our own experience, not what another says of them." Obvious to us now, revolutionary at the time, a good example of theological stimulation being provided to assist the emergence of the empirical method.
5.
God is free and sovereign. Some ancient Greeks, like Aristotle, thought that we could discover the principles that governed the world simply through rational reflection. However, Christians believed that God was free. He was not obliged to create the world according to the principles that philosophers thought best. The only way to discover God's plan in creation was to go out and look. This meant an increased focus on observation and experiment. There can be no living science unless there is a widespread instinctive conviction in the existence of an order of things, and, in particular, of an order of nature.
6.
In Christian thought, human beings are fallen creatures, who lack the grace to understand God's mind through reason alone. Christians had some grounds to doubt the effectiveness of unaided reason. So, They wanted to check our ideas about the natural world by observation, measurement and experimentation. Every man, both from a derived corruption, innate and born within him, and from his breeding and converse with men, is very subject to slip into all sorts of errors. These being the dangers in the process of humane reason, the remedies of them all can only proceed from the real, the mechanical, the experimental philosophy.